What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Today I'm going to be telling you about Final Fantasy VII, give you my experience with the game when I first played it, and how it's affected me as a gamer for all these years, and how I keep coming back, as all of us do, to the game that kind of changed the industry and continues to do so till this day. Get ready. Here we go. So, when we think of Final Fantasy VII, the game was first released in 1997 on the PlayStation 1. I first saw my cousin playing it, and I was just hooked as soon as I saw it. I was just blown away, one, by the graphics of the game at the time, and also the gameplay itself. Everything that I can remember from the game, such as the storyline, learning all the characters, which are absolutely just some of the best characters in gaming that I can think of, and also many of the other aspects of the Final Fantasy universe, the music by legendary orchestrator Nobuo Uematsu. And then also the story that was made in 7, finding out that there's many different aspects of the game that you kind of go up against. There's not really one main protagonist, so to speak, until later in the game, but essentially it's how the story changes directions and it morphs. And it's kind of like, it had a profound impact on me because I played Final Fantasies before this one, but this one just, I don't know what it was. It really grabbed me in terms of how you grow with these characters, how you invest in their stories, and how each one of the characters plays an important part in the overarching story in general. We start off going up against a corporation that is almost like a giant power company. In a sense, what they're doing is taking all of the energy out of the planet and then burning it essentially into nothing and utilizing it as energy so they can deliver their infrastructure for power. The other thing is, after they do all this destruction and they're kind of this evil corporation in a sense, and you're going up against them as what they call a terrorist cell, but essentially you're a freedom fighter. You're fighting for the planet, you're fighting for the people, and you're trying to take away what they're doing, which is ultimately destroying the planet. Along the way, we meet other characters such as Sephiroth, who at first you don't know much about. You just know in bits and pieces through the story that in the beginning, at least in Midgar, that he's like a great war hero. He was in this war between Midgar and Wutai, and he's just like someone that all the kids wanted to be. Even Cloud, who's the main character, essentially as a child was looked up to Sephiroth, idolized him, and said, that's who I want to be. I want to be just like him. What's interesting even furthermore is learning that bad guy behind the curtain, or bad guy, bad girl, whatever it is, you find out that there's much more going on than meets the eye, essentially. There's almost this alien force that's controlling so many, including the main character. And I think it's basically learning throughout this game. And the reason it had such a big impact on me is because I could almost relate to this main character. The main character wasn't some big muscle-bound force that is almost an unattainable. He has so many flaws. He is quirky. He's kind of an ass in the beginning of the game, but he almost, as you play through it, if you've never played it before, you learn that he's got a lot wrong with him. One, he's trying to discover and remember who he was as a person. And if you've played the game, you know exactly what we're talking about here. He's got so much in his mind that's broken. And along the way, with the help of the companions, with the help of meeting up with the antagonists along the way, he kind of discovers who he is. The reason I think this game has set so long and it's been able to continue for so long is because there's so many different subplots within this main story that is great storytelling in general. So my general thoughts on the game was the first impact of a full playthrough for me is we're talking about learning the characters that have been just staples in the industry. Cloud, Tifa, Barrett, Red 13, even side characters that in for straight playthrough of the vanilla Final Fantasy VII, you may not even come across them. I know I didn't at first. I was able to play through without ever knowing about Vincent or Yuffie. There's a lot of different characters in this game originally that were not known if they were going to be canonized, which later we know they did. And so just all of these characters, and I think if you haven't followed Maximilian Dude, here's his channel. I would definitely recommend giving him a sub. I've never found anyone that's been as huge of a diehard fan of Final Fantasy VII as much as I am other than him. He goes hardcore when it comes to 7. So hats off to you, Max. I get a lot of, my enthusiasm for the game, and I keep it going from him. So with those characters, we find that we're almost a ragtag bunch of people trying to protect the planet, save the planet, and learn about each other along the way. Characters that really just jump out and grab you. And what's interesting is they don't talk like video game characters. They talk like normal people. It's actually really amazing. Even when you're playing through the game with no voice acting at all, you can almost put yourself in their shoes and be like, wow, this is just something entirely different than what we're used to. Not only that, but the music sets the stage. The music in this game is out of control. I think I've never had music in a game affect me as much as it has in 7. And not only that, but almost the entire soundtrack of the game, there's almost not one bad song whatsoever. There really isn't, unless you think about the gold saucer theme on repeat and you hear it 100,000 times. That can get a little much after a while, but other than that, the soundtrack just is legendary. And so we've got great characters, a great story, music that is out of control, and then the game itself. So how does it play? You've got a battle system that's relatively easy to understand. You've got the menu at the bottom. You've got 3 characters that you're in control of for the main portion of the game. And then just a few menus that you hop through, whether you're attacking, using magic, summons, or your items list. But the one thing from this game that really solidified it on its own and made it just so different, but yet it was so in depth, was the materia system. It is by far my absolute favorite system of any Final Fantasy game. Some games have come close, such as for me specifically, the Sphere Grid in 10 was really nice, but the materia system is by far my absolute favorite. So you get these orbs that are crystallized versions of the planet's energy, and with these orbs, you can put them in your weapons, your armor, and then it unlocks abilities that you're able to utilize. It's really, really cool, and if you haven't tried it, you don't know what you're missing out, because it is an extremely awesome game. I mean, yeah, this game has been out for over 20 years, but nonetheless, there's always someone that hasn't experienced it before. And now that we're coming up on, the second version of the remake, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it just seems like we've got lifelong fans that are going to continue to discover 7 along the way, and even the OG fans like me that, just absolutely love to continue the ride. So that's the original 7, and then you have all those years that go by until the game Before Crisis comes out in 2004. I've never personally played this game, so I don't really have a lot to say about it other than I know it exists, and it may play a part in the overarching compilation of Final Fantasy VII. 1 year later, we get into Advent Children. This is the first time that we're able to see Final Fantasy VII itself, characters fully realized in amazing CGI, and then the voices of all the characters we're able to hear for the first time. Yeah, there was Cloud previous to that in 2002 in Kingdom Hearts, but we don't really hear much from him. Whereas in Advent Children, we get to hear a lot more from all of these characters. Some characters we don't hear very much from, such as Barrett, where you just hear a recording of him on a cell phone. Overall, we see that Final Fantasy VII, even after all those years, still is just, we're hungry for it. And we're seeing, oh, wow, this looks so amazing. Just imagine if there was a new game. Now, and later in 2005, this is what kind of just set the stage for the internet becoming furiously hungry for something Final Fantasy VII modernized. And of course, I'm talking about the PS3 FF7 tech demo that just trolled the entire fan base of Final Fantasy. I remember watching that E3 that year, and everyone was just kind of waiting, and then they dropped this tech demo. And when we see what's actually on the screen for the first time, if you listen to the crowd reaction from that at the very end, everyone's kind of just like, wait, what did we just see? Is that real? Are they actually doing something? That's why I think my reaction to seeing everyone just kind of at the end go, wait, what? Yeah, yes, please, more. That's how I felt. I mean, I was absolutely blown away by it. We'd never seen a game engine, a new tech demo engine running Final Fantasy VII. So when we see that, we see the possibilities. We see what a high-def remake would look like. So that set the stage for that, and it created the demand, I think, that went on for years until we actually got to the Final Fantasy VII Remake. A year later, we get into the PlayStation 2's compilation game, Dirge of Cerberus. Didn't play this one either. I honestly feel like I'm not missing much other than seeing, you know, the cast of characters and some CGI cutscenes that look pretty good. From everything I've seen online and watching people review the game and hearing about how the game is, it's got a very small niche fan base for that one specifically. So I remained uninterested in it. But then 2 years later in 2008, we get Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. Now, what makes this one very unique is we get to see the backstory of Zack Fair. So knowing and assuming that everyone I'm talking to knows the story of Final Fantasy VII, you know a little bit about Zack and what happens with him and Cloud that makes it so profound that we get to see this backstory. How Cloud, the ex-soldier, ends up coming to realize later in the game that he was never a soldier, that he took on the persona of Zack when Zack died. It's basically finding out how Zack and Cloud meet, how parts of the original vanilla game that we see, what actually happens at those points. Zack visiting Nibelheim with Cloud and seeing Tifa, the whole Nibelheim incident, and then Zack and Cloud escaping the Shinra mansion at Nibelheim. So all of that stuff really lends a great sense of discovery. And so here we are, 11 years later, still delving into Final Fantasy VII, and I never got to play Crisis Core, I think, which is amazing because you're getting ready to come up on a remake of Crisis Core, so I can experience that. So I'm really looking forward to that. Why did I never play Crisis Core Original? I never had a PSP, so I didn't get to play it, but I knew of it for sure. 1 year later, we get Advent Children Complete. The Advent Children Complete, 4 years later, what did we really get with that? We got some extra footage, so it's an extended version. It was available for the first time in Blu-ray 4K HD. I really only cared so much for the extra footage, but it was nice to see that we got a Blu-ray release of that. So super awesome. And then we kind of just went radio silent from 2009 all the way to 2015. What happened in 2015, might you ask? So the internet literally fractured. That was the E3 that we have them come out on stage and say that by popular demand, they've got a very exciting treat for everyone.
By popular demand, we have a very special treat for everyone.
Then we see the actual remake announcement. I lost my mind. And I think Max did as well, because everyone remembers seeing this clip right here.
I want to become one of the most beloved games in PlayStation and video game history. Tonight, I am proud to announce that by popular demand, we have a very special treat for everyone.
Hold on to your butts!
We looked upon the floating sky.
Yeah, the slide!
Oh! And its womb came an age of silence.
It's happening!
With each fond remembrance, we knew. The reunion at hand may bring joy. It may bring fear.
Totally gonna be a
But
movie.
let us embrace whatever it brings.
I don't want to believe it.
Look at it already!
Are coming back.
Oh my God! No way! Oh, my body! For it. Oh! Yes!
So we end up getting the promise made that the remake is gonna happen, and then we just kind of wait from there. Everyone's riding the high until a few years later where everyone's like, wow, we have seen kind of nothing going on with the 7 remake. Then we saw tidbits of information come out, and of course we all know the story as to how CyberConnect, I believe it was, that was originally doing the engine of the game, released a trailer showcasing what the game will look like. We see the original trailer, and then we kind of have to wait longer. We essentially had to wait longer than I think we would have if the game was originally made by the same studio. Square Enix ended up taking and scrapping the CyberConnect engine. They ended up making this a completely in-house project. They created their own engine for it. Now here we are. 19 E3, we see the actual trailer for Final Fantasy VII Remake drop. Looks absolutely phenomenal. And then we end up getting the 2020 release in March. I still haven't played the game myself. This probably sounds crazy. How can I call myself a fan of something? Well, you know, life, etc., etc. But nonetheless, I remain a huge fan of the game to this day. I look forward to playing Remake, and I will play it in order. I'm not just going to jump straight into Rebirth. Now, I have watched the game played in its entirety. I watched every bit of Maximilian Dude streaming on Twitch, all of his playthrough on 7. It was awesome. I like watching play-alongs and streams, and it's great to see someone have the reactions that I myself would. What happened with that release? Did it meet all the hype that was generated? I believe, in my personal opinion, it absolutely exceeded the hype. I mean, we're talking about a game that after all these years, it looks, one, phenomenal. The game absolutely blew my mind as far as its technical prowess that it was able to showcase with its just movie-like assets that it was able to display. You had the reimagining of the sounds and the music of the game that just absolutely was amazing. And the thing that's great is it doesn't lose its sense of identity, because you have the music that harkens back to the original, but then you have this modern take on it, a full range of sound, orchestrated sound. It's just, and then plus some new sounds and new tracks entirely that are familiar, but yet they have this like super hype theme to them. I mean, you've got some of them, such as like, I think it was on the trek to Wall Market, where I was watching Max play, and there was just this track that dropped, and you're sitting there going, bah?
Holy shit, man! Cloud, can you please fucking murder this guy? That's doing right. Oh my god! Wow.
Really great reception by the industry and by the fans as a whole. Then we had the year later Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, which is kind of the DLC for the first remake variant that gives you Yuffie's perspective, what's going on with her during the whole trek through Midgar. What was interesting is that we never saw this in the original game. We picked up with Yuffie when we got past Calm, through the Crystal Caves on our way to Fort Condor or Junon, depending on which way you took. She just randomly showed up in a forest. What's really funny is that I think Yuffie was a very annoying character in the original game, which is why I kind of just paid never mind to recruiting her as a character. However, she has a lot more depth in what she is utilizing, bringing to the team in 7 Remake Integrate. So it was really cool to see how she was more fleshed out, how she gave more well-rounded character versus someone that's just really annoying, which she kind of still is, but she still brings like a really good backstory to how she got where she is, why she's there in Midgar, and introducing her with Sonon and just giving her more of a canonization and how we can expect more from her in Rebirth. What was interesting about Remake Integrate in a whole was how they improved on the already absolutely monstrous battle system that they were able to utilize in 7 Remake. They were able to take the active time battle original system and modernize it in a way that is almost genius, honestly. You're able to take and run a party of 3 still. It has an active, almost action RPG sense of play, but then when you choose commands, the game slows to a crawl if you haven't experienced this yet. And it's almost like a super slow motion, giving you time to adjust your strategies for on-the-fly battling. But what they did with Intergrade is they gave you the ability to utilize Sonon as a assist character almost. You're not able to control him directly, but you can assign him commands and you have him basically sync up with your fighting style, and then you create dual techs. Just like Max called them. If you've ever played Chrono Trigger, you'll know exactly what dual techs are. It's where you're able to take and utilize combos in quick succession that will give you otherwise much stronger attacks and do more damage in general. So really, really cool the way they utilize those. And I think it was giving us a hint at Rebirth and how they're going to utilize a 3-party system and be able to expand on that even further. So it's super exciting, really looking forward to that. And then here we get brought full circle to 2023, 2024 release of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We've seen a little bit of information drop, as well as that kind of quick trailer that we saw on how the game will open up. I am entirely confident in agreement that if they were 100% smart on this, they would open that game with Cloud and Sephiroth in the back of a truck bouncing up and down, and then on their way to the Nibelheim Mako reactor. That is a really great way to showcase Cloud and Sephiroth's relationship prior to him going nuts. They would set that up as a tutorial for how the game is going to play overall. So the way I would see that happening is just like you wouldn't be able to control Sephiroth directly, but it would still set up that dual tech type interface. And then just like in Remake, how you couldn't control Red 13, they hinted at what you'd be able to do with him, and they expanded on it with Yuffie and Intergrade, and now we're just gonna go full hardcore in Rebirth. I'm still literally foaming at the mouth for the next trailer drop. I'm excited to see any information. If you were to ask me personally, I think Square would be very smart to implement some kind of information to keep the hype alive, though they don't have to do much work there, at the Game Awards, because it's right around the corner in December. I would ultimately be extremely surprised if we saw nothing mentioned about 7 Rebirth. So look forward to that. I know I will. And then when we get into next year's E3, we'll most likely see a lot more with the game at that time. And as we get closer to things like TGS, we'll see the game kind of really start getting more exposure up to the release, which would be most likely a winter 2023 to a fiscal year 2024 spring up into March, which I would think would be the ideal release window. That's kind of my own origin story of how I experienced Final Fantasy, how it's affected me as a gamer. So I'm just super excited about 7, being a fan of it. Right now, I'm trying to get into playing the original game with some mods that kind of give you your own fan-made remake, high-quality remastered visuals, higher frame rate gameplay. It just really takes and puts a fresh coat of paint on the original Final Fantasy game. If you haven't tried it, the mod is entirely free. It's very easy to do. I'll put down in the description some links to how I got it set up. Try it out if you haven't. It's extremely awesome. Of course, 7 Remake is available now. Remake Intergrade is available. I look forward to playing those. You may see me get a stream of that on Twitch or something at some point. That's Final Fantasy VII, the compilation of one game series that is probably going to withstand the test of time, and I look forward to riding this ride into the future, and I look forward to seeing what the future holds for Final Fantasy VII. Would the final game be the end of 7? Would we see anything after? Comment below, let me know. What was your experience like with Final Fantasy VII? How has it affected you as a gamer? Do you think it's overhyped? Do you think that it's time that 7 went away? Anything is open, so go ahead and comment down below. If you liked this up to this point, I would appreciate a like on YouTube. It helps get more exposure. Just click the thumbs up button below. Comment, that helps get me more exposure as well. Even if you don't want to say anything, throw your favorite emoji in there. Help get this video out to more people. And if you haven't, go ahead and subscribe. There will be more frequent content coming, so I look forward to getting a schedule down so I can get more and more content out to you. And from there, I'll go ahead and end this video on this note. I'm Josh, and this has been Final Fantasy VII Compilation. See you next time. I'm changing channels. Later.